All right, this is OneLastMidnight. Welcome back to another episode of Astroneer, and we're going to cover a base building guide. So I have done a base building guide in the past, but since there's been a lot of new changes and a lot of changes to some of the values of the bytes of items, I decided to remake my base building guide, and this time I'm going to do it in 3 parts. In this video, we're going to cover the first part of your base building guide. So getting started and all the way up to completing all of the base building items, all the way up to the atmospheric condenser. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Thanks. So this might not be new to you, but at the beginning of Astroneer, you're at the space station and you're going to launch. Once you launch, you're going to go land on the planet and your base is going to unpack. One of the first things that you want to do is run over to the landing pad and get your initial cargo drop. Once that lands, you want to unpack it, set it up, and you're ready to get started. Once you've set up that initial cargo drop, your first order of business is to get some resin. So go find yourself a nice little resin field and grab your first piece of resin. You want to immediately make a canister. The canister is needed because as you're getting more resin, you're gathering soil and you'll use that soil later. The next item you should focus on is compound. Make sure you find some compound, which is usually close to the resin, and gather yourself at least 2 to 3 pieces. After you're done getting the compound, it's time to go back to the base. Find yourself a nice little spot and punch a hole into the ground. Now, remember that compound that we got? Well, you're going to need to make yourself some tethers because you're going to want to be able to breathe. So make sure you build some tethers up and continue on punching a hole down into the first layer of the caves. This is where the fun really begins. Next order of business is research. Research. Now, luckily it comes in many different flavors, but I like the cave rock flavor research. They're abundant, you can find them all over the bottom of the caves, and they respawn in about 10 minutes. You can also come across research aid containers. Inside contains a nice little research item which you can either immediately open them up for instant gratification of 400 to 500 bytes, or you can save them to put them on the research chamber for triple the value. Your initial goal is to get 750 bytes to unlock the large platform B and the smelting furnace. When you're in the caves, chances are you're going to run across some cool items. Make sure you drag them back to your tether line so that next time you go to the surface, you can bring them up to the base. Now that you have the large platform B and the smelting furnace unlocked, it's time to leave the caves. But before you do, if you're lucky enough, you found a deposit of resin. Make sure you gather up enough resin to make yourself 2 large platform Bs and a little bit extra to build the smelting furnace. Immediately after arriving back at your base, start the process of crafting the large platform B. Since you don't have much power, it's going to take a moment or two to build the large platform, but that'll give you an opportunity to gather more resources that you might need to build the smelting furnace. Once the large platform B is completed, unpack it and position it somewhere at your base. Then start the process of building the smelter. Again, it's going to take some time to build, so at this point in time, I like to get my next item, which is the work light. And for the work light, we're going to need to head to the hills. So find yourself the closest mountain, build yourself some tethers, and start working your way towards the mountains. Remember that along the way, you might find some very useful items for your base, so make sure you note their location so you can pick them up on the way home. Gather yourself up enough malachite so that you can refine it into copper to make a work light and have a little extra on the side for future use. On your way back to base, make sure you grab any of those items that you might have found in your travels and immediately stick the malachite on the smelting furnace to process into copper. While you're waiting, make sure you start up another large platform B. And when the copper is completely finished, go ahead and produce your work light. This will help you see in those dark caves while you're searching for more research and gathering resources. After the large platform B is complete, it's time to spin up a research chamber and gather some research. Usually you can find research pretty close to your initial landing spot. All you have to do is start looking around. The next phase of the base building is pretty research byte intensive. We're going to be focusing on getting the soil centrifuge up and running, the solid fuel thruster, and also the small shuttle. That's going to cost you a total of 2,750 bytes. So, it's time to get back down into the caves, and I like to drop at this point down to the second level of the caves to start gathering even more research, resources, and just general exploring. In a very short period of time, while having the research chamber running above ground and finding research items in the second cave level, and then also going back and checking the first cave level to see if any research items have respawned, we'll be able to unlock the soil centrifuge. It's now time to make another large platform B, create the soil centrifuge, and place it at the base. While you're running around in the caves or on the surface of the planet, always remember to feed the research chamber. It's a nice little additional trickle of bytes that you can get without having to be at your base watching it. The only way to unlock building pieces inside of Astroneer is with research bytes. So remember to stay on top of it. In no time, you'll have the solid fuel thruster ready to go and to be unlocked. Before you wind up building the small shuttle, we are going to need an additional piece. You're going to have to make the large printer. The large printer is the only printer that will print any of the shuttles. So go ahead, and while you're waiting for bytes to generate, start that large printer and place it before you start going off and getting more research or more resources. We're getting close to the point where we're about to leave the planet, and it's good to prepare before we do that. Laterite is absolutely necessary. The shuttle and solid fuel thruster both take laterite. It's also a good time to spin up at least one ammonium if you haven't found a source of ammonium that is close to your base. Once you have the bytes, go ahead and unlock the small shuttle. The printing time on the shuttle is going to take a while, especially since we don't have a lot of power. So go ahead and start printing out the small shuttle and also print out the solid fuel thruster. Once the small shuttle and the solid fuel thruster have been built, you're technically ready to leave. But before I do that, I like to get 3 additional items. We need to go to 2 planets, and I want 2 little mini stations that I can come back to later. So we're going to need about 3,000 more bytes. You want to get the medium platform B, which is the platform that you start off with in your initial cargo drop. You also want to get an oxygenator. Now I realize you get an oxygenator from the beginning, but I like to keep mine at my existing Silva base and take another one to each one of the planets that we're going to go to. And then also the drill mod 1. The drill mod 1 is necessary to get through harder rock, especially when we go to Glacio to pick up the resources that we need from there. So you know the drill. Get out, get research bytes, and unlock the medium platform B, the oxygenator, and the drill mod 1. Alright, it's finally time to leave Silva, and our first destination is DeSolo. Our main target on DeSolo is wolframite, which we're going to convert over to tungsten. Tungsten is absolutely needed to make the chemistry lab. So that's our goal, and that's what we're going to go for. Be sure to package all the items that you need before you leave to go to DeSolo. Make sure you take yourself a beacon, the small platform B, the oxygenator, a couple of compound, and you're ready to take off. Head over to DeSolo. Once you land at DeSolo, make sure you set up and punch a hole immediately into the ground and get into the cave system. The bonus is, as you're roaming around looking for wolframite, you're going to come across research. Those little research items that are growing on rocks that we found on Silver are also on DeSolo, but the trick is they're worth double the value. So as you're running around the cave system, make sure to pick up as much research as you possibly can. Grab yourself some wolframite, fill up your entire backpack, and head on home to Silva. Once you arrive back at Silva, unload your wolframite and start processing it into tungsten. Now remember, you're going to have to make the care package all over again, and you're also going to have to make a new solid fuel thruster. So get everything you need to build a solid fuel thruster, an oxygenator, a small platform B, a beacon, and some compound. And we're off to Glacio. The reason we decided to go to Glacio is threefold. Titanite and hematite can both be found in abundance on Glacio. When refined down, they create titanium and iron respectively, and also iron is needed for the atmospheric condenser. The third reason is because Glacio offers an abundance of research bites. As I said before, Glacio has an abundance of research bites. Sometimes you get lucky and you can find these white research items just laying around on the surface. They provide thousands of research bites very quickly. So if you have the space in your shuttle, make sure that you take one home with you. Otherwise, most of your research is going to come from research samples that can be found in the mountains on the rocks. And also the best ones can be found in the cave systems on Glacio. They will provide you hundreds of bites each. Make sure while you're there you get as many of these research samples as you possibly can. Hematite is found on the surface of Glacio in large pockets. Matter of fact, the first pocket that you come across will probably hold so much that you won't be able to take it home with you. Remember, this first trip, we only really need 4. Titanite is found in the cave systems, and you might have to go looking for it, but once you find it again, it should be a very large pocket of it. Hopefully you brought the Drill Mod 1 with you. If you didn't, you're going to have a very hard time getting through the rock. As it is, getting Titanite in the caves with Drill Mod 1 is a little slow, but you can get 4 relatively quickly. Once you've gathered enough research bites, and you've gathered your Titanite and hematite, go ahead and take off and go back to Silva. Unless you did something completely wrong, which is not collecting research bites when you went to DeSolo and Glacio, you should have plenty of bites to open up the chemistry lab and the atmospheric condenser. Once you've unlocked both of those, start creating the chemistry lab. Inside of the chemistry lab, we need one item to make the atmospheric condenser, and that's plastic. So once you've created all the items for the atmospheric condenser, make the atmospheric condenser as well. All right, so there it is. You've completed your first base. You've gotten all the way up to the atmospheric condenser, and that kind of completes phase 1. Like I said in the beginning, I'm going to be doing this in 3 parts. We covered phase 1, which was the first starting out. Then we're going to look at the middle phase of the game and what to build during the middle phase. And the final phase 3 will be late game, what you should be focusing on late game at your base. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button. If you're not subscribers, please subscribe. We've got a great community here. And if you want to follow me on any of my social media, you can find the links in the description below. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.